And let's do the 4 limitless contemplation. May all beings have happiness and create the causes of happiness. May they all be free from suffering and creating the causes of suffering. May they find that noble happiness which can never be tainted by suffering. May they attain universal impartial compassion, free of worldly bias towards friends and enemies. Semchen damje dewatang dewe jutang dimpa jutik, dungal tang dungal chichu tang drawa jutik, dungal mepe dewa tampa tang mindrawa jutik, nering chaktang nitang drawe tang nom chempo lani pa jutik. So good evening for all of you that I didn't say good evening to on this beautiful evening. We're going to do the next session of meditation, non-meditation, contemplation, and pondering, all those 4. So I will give you a little bit of what we did last time, and then we'll go on to a whole lot of new things, which is very important that we're able to really expand the practices. And so tonight, I want to start with a beautiful story, which might be very helpful to all of you in your practice. And this was an American tourist found himself in India on the day of a pilgrimage to the top of a sacred mountain. Thousands of people would climb the steep path to the mountaintop. The tourist, who had been jogging and doing vigorous exercise and thought he was in good shape, decided to join in and share the experience. After 20 minutes, he was out of breath and could hardly climb another step, while women carrying babies and frail old men with canes moved easily past him. I don't understand it, he said to an Indian companion. How can those people do it when I can't? His friend answered, it is because you have the typical Western habit of seeing everything as a test. You see the mountain as your enemy and you set out to defeat it. So naturally the mountain fights back and it is much stronger than you are. We do not see the mountain as our enemy to be conquered. The purpose of our climb is for our inner being to be in harmony, to become one with the mountain. And so the mountain lifts us up and carries us along. Now that story is extremely important for all your practices. I haven't got this right still. That story is very, very important because we as Westerners, with all our meditational practices, with all our Vajrayana practices, with all our Shine practices, with everything, what we do is we set out to conquer. We're going to conquer. We are going to get to the top of Mount Everest and we're going to conquer, all the negative things in the world. And that is the complete wrong approach. Even when you're doing meditation, what is very important for non-meditation, contemplation, all 4 practices, what is really important is to be one with your true nature, with your RIGPA, with your absolute intrinsic awareness. Once you are one with that, then it carries you along. And then you really can, you're not getting anywhere. This is what all these masters say over and over again. To actually identify your true nature isn't anything sensational. It's actually just what we're here to do, just as it is. And so it's really important that what we're concentrating on in all of these practices is just being right there at the time, accepting our life situations. And we're going to come across some very, very interesting things in the non-meditation, which actually goes with our everyday life. It's really, really important that all of you understand this, because if you're going to see even your Vajrayana practice, your deity practice, which is developing the qualities of that deity inside you, as a challenge, if you're going to see that as a challenge, you're not going to get there, because the challenge is not to challenge that true nature. That true nature already is there. Whatever you do, it's like going up the mountain that frail people can get up, because it's not a challenge. It's making yourself one with that true nature. And that's a very, very important aspect of it. So tonight, we're going to go back to the 4 headings that I gave you last time, and we'll do lots of little short practices, but going back to last week, and it was wonderful because Martin is not able to be here because he's got some business meetings and things, but he wrote to me, watched the video of it, and he said, it was so refreshing, because he says he realized that he is often quite stale and rigid in his practice. And he said what was absolutely wonderful about last week was that he felt refreshed and joyful and regenerative about his practice, which is what I want to do. So we have to find practices that, number one, give you joy and are at least inspiring, refreshing, not forced and repetitive and dull. If something feels a drag on you, don't do it. Rather walk around your garden and be in tune with nature. It doesn't matter what you do for practice, as long as you are tuned into your intrinsic awareness, to your RIGPA, to your real true nature, then it will all come through. And that's why I've put my own thing, pondering, as a 4th meditational practice, because I do so much pondering. And for those of you that don't like just sitting in meditation, there are lots and lots of very exciting, interesting practices that you can do, short ones. And I mean, Cameron came and gave you the mind, the mind training when he came and did the talk when I was away. And I remembered that Lama Yeshe Rinpoche had said to us before a few years ago, that he wanted us to start every single session that we gave in the center with the 37 Bodhisattva practices. Some of you might remember. Do you remember, Kathy? Do a few of you, Marion, you were there, I think, a lot of you. We had to start with the 37 practices. And I was thinking, that might be really nice to get the booklet fee and for us to do the 37 practices, which are ways of being in this world, because that can be your meditation on its own, which is a great way. So I think that's another one we must go back and look at, and I've got the booklets. Okay, and 2, that we keep reminding ourselves that we are in a human birth, to return to our true state of pure presence, our true nature of mind, RIGPA, our luminosity and intrinsic awareness. So important this, because if you actually look at every single thing that is created from the essence, it's all luminous. It's all got color. It's all rainbow-like. And when I look at the world, sometimes it looks so dull. I can't see that luminosity. But that's not because the luminosity isn't there. It's because of me, my mind, and my perception, not because the luminous nature isn't there. So we have to train ourselves to be with Sem Ni, which is the true nature of mind, rather than Sem, which is in our ordinary mind, the mind we've been conditioned to for eons. And that ordinary human conditioned mind keeps interfering with that. And the third thing is that we apply this discovery to our daily lives without distraction. And it's an amazing thing when you see how distracted all of us are, including me. So distracted. I'm in the middle of doing something, and then I pop off to do something else, or I quickly do this, or I quickly do that. First of all, telephones should never come into your practice time. They should be left out. And mine does come into practice time for a very important reason. Not that I look at it all the time, but periodically when I complete something, then I quickly look to see if there's anything urgent, because I know I'm not going to have time later. But it's shocking. How can telephones, how can these cell phones come in? Those are the most mundane things you could be, that reinforce your ordinary mind. So we don't need them. And we need to, like I said last week, you need to do calm abiding to see the jewel at the bottom of the lake. But calm abiding is just the beginning. It will never lead to liberation. Now, out of Tulku Urgent Rinpoche, and then we'll do a little meditation after this, he wrote this, and I thought it was a very interesting little paragraph. He said, a true practitioner who has recognized mind essence, and you can question about mind essence, who has recognized, which means reknown mind essence, and stayed in the mountains in samadhi, that's in that beautiful meditative state, and is almost free from confusion during the daytime. And he said, he might think, now I'm free from confusion during the time of day. But having descended to the village, he's calling a village, I'm calling a city, city life, okay? Having descended to the village, he or she will soon think, oh no, my meditation is destroyed. I must have left it behind in the mountains. Before, when I stayed in the mountains, my meditation was splendid. No delusion at all during the day and no distraction. Now, when I stay in the city, my meditation is lost and gone without a trace left. Now, Tulku Urgent says, this is how it happens. It may not be that you're in meditation in a village, up from a village. You may be in meditation in the morning. You may do 20 minutes practice. You may do an hour's practice. You may do more. And then you go out into your daily life. And Tulku Urgent Rinpoche says, this is how it happens. And this is because of failing to mingle the practice with your daily activities. Now, when we do it, I mean, Keith Dowman, when he says, walking, eating, sleeping, and sorry, but he uses the word shitting, okay? He says those 4 activities, I wouldn't use that word, but I'm quoting at the moment, okay? But he uses all those words, and he says, if you can't apply your true nature to those things, you know, sometimes I'm watching something, or I'm listening to somebody, or I'm on my phone, and I put a mouthful of food into my mouth. Now, I'm unaware of the food. I'm unaware really of what I'm doing on the phone. I'm unaware. Now, if you can multitask, you need to, I once asked Akon Rinpoche, can you be aware multitasking? And he kind of didn't know how to answer it, because I said, because in our lives we multitask. Can you be aware of everything? I'm sure you can. I'm sure you can, but I'm not. Okay, then I give myself to that task, then it goes away, and give myself to another task. Now, the most important thing is that you are able to apply this to your daily life. Otherwise, what's the point? When you come to the portal of death, you will not know that nature. You will not know RIGPA. And then when you see RIGPA, when this body melts off, you're going to really be very upset that you didn't take more time to really get to know it. So it's really, really important. So let's start now tonight with a little practice. I'm going to give you lots of different people's practices, okay? But let's start. I want you to give poor
Well, so can I just ask you one question before we carry on?
Absolutely.
Could you explain the difference between contemplation and reflection?
Oh, that's an interesting thing, because contemplation probably is reflection. But you know what I'm going to do? Instead of going into that,
Yes.
as soon as we've done this, we're going to go to the 4 practices, and then we'll come to non-meditation, contemplation. And you know where I would like to put reflection, although I think reflection could easily go into all the practices. But I think reflection for me is what you're asking is like pondering. Because you know, pondering and reflection are the same thing, because you sit and you let it come up, and you've got a particular thing you are pondering, but you drop it. You don't intellectualize about it. And then from your true state comes all the things you need to understand about it. But when you think about something, you don't get that kind of understanding, for absolute sure. So let's put reflection with pondering, but it does also come in, because they always say your mind is a reflection. What you see is a reflection in your mind. So it could also come into there, which is beautiful. Does anyone else want to ask anything? We'll definitely pick that up, Da. Anyone else want to ask anything or say anything? Kathy's walking from the station. Anyway, to see you so well is wonderful, you know, walking from work. Thank goodness. Okay, it's a good thing. Put the walking into awareness. Okay. Okay, that's good. Okay, let's do a little practice now. And I want to take this practice from Longchenpa, who was a great master. So you sit cross-legged on a comfortable cushion. If you don't want to be cross-legged, that's okay. But just remember, with a cross-leg, I heard the most wonderful teaching on how the winds and everything work in your meditation posture. So I would also like to do that with you sometime, because I think it's really a beautiful teaching. But in the meantime, I think get into your meditative posture, all the different postures, your hands on your lap, right over left, with the thumbs touching, your spinal column straight. It's just to bring everything into place. But as Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche says, there is no rigidity about this. And he gives, in his shamatha meditation, when it goes on to looking deeply, he says you can move. You can use Tai Chi movements. You can use any movements, because it's not rigid. And you'll see when we move from the meditation to the non-meditation, how important this is. But right now, for the beginning, relax your physical bodies. And I want everybody to take the 9 cleansing breaths. And I think the 9 cleansing breaths are really quite important for you to do, because they clear the 3 main channels. So you take your left ring finger, put it on your left nostril, just your left nostril. And then as you breathe in through your left nostril, you let the finger go. And as you breathe out, you close that and breathe out through your right nostril. So you do 3 of those. And then change hands and do it on the other side. Cleansing everything, all the winds, all the channels. And then the third, there are 9 breaths. So those are 3, 6, and the third ones are breathing in through both nostrils and out through your nostrils, not through your mouth. Now, those 9 purification breaths, you should really do quite often, especially when you're agitated. You'll find that it helps you totally to settle and center yourself, okay? And what Longchenpa says is, take refuge and recall the Bodhisattva vow, not heavy refuge. Just say, I'm taking refuge even in my Buddha nature. That's even okay. But just make your mind up that you're just taking refuge in your highest nature, or in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, whichever way you like to, or in the Guru. You're just taking refuge. And the Bodhisattva vow, while the planet's in a really bad way, you're doing it for the sake of all suffering sentient beings. So those 3 things are really very good to do. And he says, then the mind focuses loosely on an object of perception. So it can be the breath, it can be the eye that I showed you last week, we'll do it again, without any idea in mind, without any thought, distraction-free, radiant and shining. And you stay there without concentration or dispersion, just for an instant. The object of perception is not externalized, free of thought and material objects, and the immaterial grasping mind is not there. The mind that meditates neither affirms nor negates. What is in front of the mind, whether it be an eye, whether it be a candle, whether it be the breath, is said to be absent, for there is nothing there established. And during informal meditation, between sessions of meditation, you're looking at all appearances in your life, and you see them as apparent, yet non-existent. So you know that every single thing around you is apparent, but non-existent. You just are aware of that, like magical illusion. So the pure presence that we've been talking about was introduced in the view and is itself the meditation. Wherever a single perception falls, you let it hang loosely, but firmly, without modifying it in any way. And it rests in naked, empty, pure presence. When you cannot stay therein, because suddenly there's the sudden arising of a thought, you just hang loosely in that thought. As creativity, the thought is just released into its own ground, like a wave falling back into the ocean. And Buddha is recognized in this beautiful, pure present state. Engaging diligently and one-pointedly in this practice, you are confident, and with creativity, you really are very, very joyful in the practice. Then the Guru, could be Guru Rinpoche or your own Guru, melts into light and dissolves into us. And his mind becomes inseparable from your own, like water being poured into water. In that space, without modification, very relaxed, sustain the view, sustain the view. Then when a thought suddenly arises, just hang loosely in the thought and relax, just as it is. With neither affirmation nor rejection, says Longchenpa, whatever arises as a thought form does not crystallize in any way. It's not pursued, it's just left as it is. It is naked, pure presence, shining and vivid, with neither projection nor absorption. Thus, slowly, pure presence recognizes itself, and you rest in the stillness of the stream of it. You do not follow the thoughts or suppress them. You do nothing whatsoever, just abiding in the natural state. When you sustain that practice for days, months, and years, says Longchenpa, pure presence is the automatic constant. External conditions never change it, and whatever thoughts arise does so as meditation and dissolves into themselves. You have a built-in trust in this meditation. You have no need of other people's input, because meditation is the natural state of things, and you know instinctively that it is only that nature of mind that exists. Look, I'm going to jog back and forth, but what I want you to understand is that whatever we do, you come back to the same point, and that's what all of them teach over and over and over again. Most people, even when they are undistracted, are still fixating. I was talking to somebody today, and we were talking about fixation. And how, as human beings, we can never close the door on things that have happened in the past. We just can't close that door. We just keep bringing it there and picking it up. And we can't stop fixating on that. And that's why we can't allow pure presence to be, because we can't. I said to this person that I had a conflict with somebody quite close in our family. I had a conflict. Oh, shame, load shedding. Sorry about that. I had a conflict with somebody, and it was important, my relationship with this person. So when I was asked by another member of the family, what was I going to do about it, I had pondered it, but I just said, I'm turning to a clean page. And that's exactly what I did. I turned to a clean page, and everything of the past that happened with that person no longer existed. I will never fixate on it. I will never pick it up again. Now, can you do this? Because this is part of the practice. Shame, poor Kathy going on and on walking from the station. It's so difficult, but can you turn onto a new blank page rather than fixating on things and bringing them up again and again and again? To what avail? If you've gone through something and you've learned the lesson, drop it, go onto a clean page and really be in RIGPA on that clean page, so that you're not going back to pick it up again. It's done. It's over. There's a new page. You never allow your mind to go back there again. So RIGPA is empty of grasping and fixating like the sky, says Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche. In the Dzogchen system, meditation and post-meditation are totally indivisible. There's no difference. When you get up from the meditation, you are in that same sheen state. You are in that same nature of mind. And I know that this isn't easy in the beginning, but when you get it, you will see how amazing it is, because you take it with you all the time. No more grasping. Drop the grasping. Why am I like this? And why is this happening to me? And what's this all about? Do it once and finish. Go on to a clean page. Because in the nature of mind, none of this is there. It doesn't register these things. It is only the human part of the mind that goes back and fixates and registers on things. And Tulku Urgyen says there's no division between meditation and post-meditation, because the post-meditation is the meditation state itself. Emaho. It's very important. So this little story that I'm going to give you, I keep thinking, where will I fit this story? And I think this is really a good thing to do. Before I just give you this little story, I want to say that Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche says that the Shine practice, the calm abiding practice, has two techniques of concentration. Concentration on an attribute that's like your eye or the breath or a rose or a candle or whatever you want to have, whatever attribute you have, just brings the mind under control. Or concentration without an attribute, and the practice becomes more relaxed after you've concentrated on an object. And then once the mind is calm, then you're going to really start observing it. And then we go on to the practice of contemplation, which I'll explain to you in a few minutes. It's really important. So this story is a very interesting, tiny little story. For all the years of her young life, Sally had never spoken a word. Her mother had taken her to all the specialists, but to no avail. Sally never spoke. Okay? I'll come to your thing now, Sharon. One morning at breakfast, Sally threw her toast down and exclaimed, "This toast is burnt. I can't eat this." Her mother was completely overwhelmed. "Sally, you're talking," she said. "Why have you never spoken before in all these years?" And Sally said, "Everything's been all right up to now." Okay, everything's been all right up to now. I love that story because I'll tell you why I love it. Because I really think it says a lot. Okay, we just talk through things logically, do things with them, fixate on them, work them out. We really doing it. Well, Sally had no need to talk. So she didn't speak until the toast was burnt. And maybe we should get a really very strong lesson from that. Maybe we think too much, speak too much, meddle too much, intellectualize too much, rationalize too much, work it out too much, plan too much. Maybe we just do it too much. Ponder that. One of the most important points on all the definition of all four is called effort or effortless. So meditation with an attribute requires effort. Meditation without an attribute is effortless. It's so important because the workings of our ordinary mind, Sem, is always with effort. Even when we go, place the mind on an object, place the mind on an object, that's an effort. And it often produces fatigue, especially when you're not successful in concentrating on something. But the work of your true nature is always effortless. And there's no success, and there's no non-success. There's none of those. It's just so. And there's no fatigue. There's knowing, wakefulness, and sheen. And that's a great way to go forward. And so many times, I look at myself, how many times I'm fatigued, and pretty often in this life, I get fatigued. But somehow, I never get fatigued when I'm teaching. I think it's because that's my meditation practice. When my true nature is registering inside me, even when I work out what I'm going to do for the lecture, it's just that I know this book comes into my hands, this text comes into my hands. I never have to make a great effort. And I want you to all understand this, that everything in your true nature of mind is effortless. There's nothing, absolutely nothing, okay? And what I said last week was that I was looking at the practices on the top of the mountain, okay, from the Ati Yoga Dzogchen point of view. And if you didn't want to go there, it's okay with me. But what you've got to understand is that everything that we are doing, everything in our lives, from our work to our eating, to our practice, to everything, is to go back to your true nature of mind, to go back to that intrinsic awareness. And you have to hold that key in your life all the time, so that every door you open, when you're going through the most terrible, terrible time in your life, you have to really remember that that is actually just so. I have people saying to me all the time, people are saying to me, how can it be that I have to go through this? I never say to people when they're in dire straits, you created this, because that's the worst thing you can say to people. But you did, you know. All of us do. We created the circumstances, and the circumstances we are in are perfect for us to clean up and finish on a relative level and get back to the nature of mind. But if you keep remembering that the nature of mind is never, ever tainted by any of the ugly stuff, doesn't that make you want to get there? Sorry, you wanted to say something, Ron and Sharon. Let me just see what you said.
Melanie, I don't want to put on the picture because the video, because we definitely won't have enough megabytes.
Okay,
it's the first time that we've been hit by load shedding, where it's finally happened, but I'm running on a connection which I think will last, but I don't have much power. I just wanted to mention that I'm talking from a Dzogchen point of view. I'm not sure about any other teachings. Namkhai Norbu and many other teachers have come up with a statement that contemplation is beyond mind. So
beyond human mind.
A reflection, sorry?
Yeah, beyond
totally beyond mind. It's not a state that many of us achieve, on a daily basis. Most people are you can be not, he even has said himself that he was not distracted. He was aware for most of his life, but he wasn't always in a state of contemplation. Yeah. So if a being like that can speak in that way, you must realize it's a very high advanced state. It's not something that you just get into. It takes quite a lot of work, and an introduction from a teacher would obviously assist. Introducing you to the nature of mind, etc. So it needs a direct introduction from a teacher.
Definitely. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And everything you're saying, I agree with wholeheartedly. And I agree that it's not a state. And I said that first in the first moment that I opened my mouth last week. But we still, of course, we are not in that state. We are just worldly, and we are involved in everything in this world, and it's really hard. But there's no harm to actually understand that beautiful open view of all these masters. And what is beautiful is how many of them, particularly Tulku Urgent Rinpoche, but also you'll see when I teach the contemplation, I'm doing it from Namkha Nobu's work, okay? I've also got other masters, but what is beautiful at this time period, because of the urgency of getting people to connect to their true nature of mind, these teachings have been left. And so we must study them and at least try and practice them, and at least have the motive of the fact that we are going to climb to the top of the mountain, that it does require a lot of effort, a lot of time and everything else, but that there is a state, and a lot of people can reach that state at little moments in their life. And that's what's important. And when I'm teaching this stuff, well, I'm not teaching it, I'm just giving you some of the master's opinions on it. But when I'm teaching it, I'm just hoping that even a glimpse helps people a lot. Because day and night, I get people coming to me, Melanie, what can I do? Look at my circumstances. How would they be? Today, I saw someone in dire circumstances in the early part of the day, really in dire circumstances. And in my mind, I thought to myself, your situation is never going to be worked out with a worldly mind. You're going to have to go beyond that to be able to see what this very devastating situation is really about. And that's what I'm mostly importantly talking about. None of us are going to be great masters walking around with that. But what you're saying is 100% true. And you
it was more because of what Diana had raised about reflection. Reflection is definitely using the mind. It's a useful technique, but it's definitely a mind activity.
Okay, I'm happy.
That's the perception I have of the situation from what I've studied.
I'm happy.
I just want to also mention something that I found very useful from teachings that I've received of how to advance on the steps here, is if you can observe your own activities, and then while you're observing, so you have to get to that point that you're just observing, you're not involved in anything, you're observing. While you're observing, if you can ask the simple question, who is observing?
Yeah.
And it provides another level of space in order to move towards contemplation.
Yeah, I know exactly.
I just thought I'd offer that.
No, and I think that's a very valid point, and I've got some teaching on that, on when you start saying, who is observing? Because is it me? Is it I? Is it Melanie? Who is observing? But when you look deeply, nobody's really observing, but you have to do all those vipassana techniques to get it, and we'll do a few while we're here as well. But that's very useful. Thanks a million. I really love what both of you say, because they've done a lot of work on this type of contemplation, and it's really important to have your contributions. Thank you. So last week, we started off with Longchenpa's worldly and trans-worldly meditation, when we were giving a definition of meditation. And the worldly meditation was when you get calm abiding. But when you get the calm abiding, you get some type of bliss. But when the bliss is exhausted, all the samsara returns. But trans-worldly meditation, he said, is when your calm abiding is joined with the wisdom of emptiness, and we begin to uproot the fixating and clinging to a self. Now, all of you understand this, The wisdom of emptiness means that everything around you is actually empty of a separate existence. There's nothing tangible. There's nothing solid. There's nothing that isn't going to change. How does that help you in your life? How, when you take the calm abiding and the wisdom of emptiness, how does that help you? Anyone want to answer that? How does it help you when you combine the wisdom of emptiness with calm abiding? Well, if you just look at it, if I am taking me, my identity, what I'm doing, the people that are insulting me, the people that are praising me, my daily life, my children, my shrine room, everything, if I am taking them as something solid and permanent and not transient and not absolutely empty of a solid self, I'm going to land up in trouble. I'm really going to land up in trouble because I'm never going to believe in anything except the solidity of what is in front of me. And that is very painful. So he says you have to combine it combine it with the wisdom of emptiness. And then you'll no longer have that clinging, that fixating. Look at me. Look what you're doing to me. Look at how hard this is for me. Look at how hard that is for me. Me, I, mine. All of that starts falling away. And when that starts falling away, a real peace starts entering us, a real feeling of being okay with whatever circumstances you are in. And knowing that if you can go to a higher view, you will see that these will soon change and soon leave you. And I did last week the beautiful Bhagawan's experience of meditation when he said the essence of meditation is simple, one-pointed, soft-focused abiding. So I also started last week in looking at the difference between meditation and non-meditation. Non-meditation is one word. It's not two words. It's one word. Okay? So non-meditation, according to the Dzogchen teachings, is a form of meditation that cannot be contrived. It is natural and spontaneous. Now, you know, for me personally, things that are natural and spontaneous are much easier for me than contrived things. But some of you might really like contrived things. But meditation is governed by a series of instructions imposed by the rational mind and then practiced as a discipline with a specific goal. Non-meditation is just the natural efflorescence of the mind when the intellect is at rest. Is your intellect ever at rest? Or are you always thinking and working? Non-meditation is that, and meditation has a starting point, an end in time, a duration of focused concentration, and a product. Non-meditation has no beginning, no end, and it has non-temporal reality. So let me give you a... He says, please.
Mel, what comes to mind then that
please, yeah.
In non-meditation, there's an instinctive response to a need, and the need arises, but there's no thinking. There's no working things out. There's no reference point other than there's this to me seems to be taking place in that natural state of mind. It's a RIGPA, and there's no claim on it, and there's no mark. It just happens. It just, as That's how it is.
And
You
answer
respond.
me something. How many people can do it? How many people do you think can
How
do
many
it?
people can do it? Melanie's asking you. It's possible. It is possible, Melanie. Very possible.
Mel, I want to, if I may ask you this. What happens when you sneeze? Or what happens when you laugh? Or what happens when you rejoice? They all take place in this element of emptiness. It's just there. It's a cleansing. As soon as you sneeze, the past is gone, the future is not there. You are just in the present in that moment. And when you laugh, this is the joy. This is the enjoyment that I think is being called upon when they say enjoy it. Now, if we look at the lamas or any enlightened beings, all of them are so joyful, but they come and they sometimes they sit and they put on a show, but there's such joy there, whatever they're doing, because there's no claim. It just comes and goes.
100%. I go along with every word you're saying. And let's define non-meditation. Non-meditation is prescribed in Dzogchen, if you want to call it prescribed. Now listen, this is the definition. It is a mode of experience in what we call initiatory experience. Okay, it's a mode of experience in what we call initiatory experience. That's exactly what Sharon was saying, that somebody has shown it to you, a master who knows it has shown it to you. That's the initiatory experience. But that means we cannot will our way back into the nature of mind by thinking or meditating. Non-meditation is achieved by doing nothing at all. Glory, hallelujah. None of you can do it because you all want to be doing something.
No, that's it, doing nothing.
Yeah.
Doing nothing. Okay, no struggle or effort or proficiency in any method of meditation or technique, and no cause or condition. And it is always with us 24 hours a day, even during sleeping and dreaming. Okay, it accommodates. I love that word. Write that word down. It accommodates, which means adapts to any circumstance. It accommodates in basic awareness anything and everything that enters the mind. It accommodates without discrimination. So if you're feeling lousy that day, it accommodates your lousy feeling. If you're feeling great that day, it accommodates your great feeling. It accommodates without discrimination. It provides a contextual space to know the nature of mind. Intellect is irrelevant because, you know, people who actually have got low intellect, they can probably do non-meditation much better than someone with intellect. That's what's so beautiful, because they don't have the interference of the intellect. I remember the Buddha giving lovely stories on that. So intellect is irrelevant, and there are different types of non-meditation, which we might do over these next couple of sessions. The quality in all types of non-meditation is constant, intrinsic presence. Constant, intrinsic presence. So you have to be totally aware and totally present. Now, to go back to that beautiful book, The Circle of Total Illumination, where this wonderful, I told you about it last week, this wonderful Maha Vajradhara, this great Buddha, Samantabhadra, if you want to call him, whatever you want to call him, was talking, and I went to his little passage on non-meditation. So then the master of the secret, that's Vajrapani, who was a great master, made this request of the Maha Vajradhara. Please explain the meaning of non-meditation. The teacher said, Vajrapani, listen. Okay, now here is what he said. The essence of non-meditation is uninterrupted intrinsic presence. Uninterrupted intrinsic presence. Called non-meditation because it entails no mental process. It's inseparable from real space. No external or internal action is necessary. Non-meditation cannot be interrupted. It is clear in itself, like the radiance of the sun. So what he's saying is, whatever you're doing, if you're eating, it's a meditation. If you're on the toilet, it's a meditation. If you're walking, like Kathy was walking from the station, it's a meditation. Whatever you are doing, you carry the uninterrupted intrinsic presence. That is the purpose of our whole lives. Very difficult to do. And just to give you one last little thing, then I'll open it and then we'll do a practice. Dilgo Khyentse, who is such a great master, this is what he said. The everyday practice of non-meditation is just everyday life itself. That's it. Everyday life itself. Ross, when you bend down to look at one of your dogs, that is non-meditation. When you look into somebody's eyes for a moment and you see them for the first time and see you, that is non-meditation. When you cook your dinner with great joy and you're touching, things, and you're putting spices at that moment, you just realize how great it is that you're spicing the food. That is non-meditation. So to go back, he says, the everyday practice of non-meditation is just everyday life itself. I put wow there. To strive for such a state, to strive to get to that state, you don't strive to get it, because he says to strive for such a state is a neurosis that only conditions us and serves to obstruct the free flow of the mind. He said it's always ideal. There's no need to correct anything. Oh my God, why didn't any teacher say this to me at school? I would have loved it if they did that. Why were they always saying, you better do this if you want to get good marks, and you better do that, and you're talking, you're missing. Why didn't we get this? I've got to read this to you once more, Dilgo Khyentse's little paragraph, because it must sink in for all of you. The everyday practice of non-meditation is just everyday life itself. If you try and strive to get this non-meditation practice, it's a neurosis which only conditions us and serves to obstruct the free flow of the mind. It's always ideal. No need to correct anything. So when I saw my little doggy yesterday, when he came out of the hospital and he was alive, this little thing, I mean, the joy when he met me and I met him, that's non-meditation. When you went to your family thing, Pam, your Germanic family thing, that's meditation. You had to look and see all the parents and children enjoying each other and having a festival or whatever the case was, and that's meditation. And also, when you're going through terrible things, divorce, illness, pain, somebody's hurt you, just to be present at that moment, for the moment of the dawning of the fact that this that is in front of you is just your own creation. It's going to clear all those imprints, but just to be present in it without desperately wanting to change it in some way is non-meditation. Now I'm opening it up and then we'll do a practice because we haven't come to contemplation. And I think, and Ron and Sharon, you're going to try and help me when it comes to contemplation, because I think contemplation is quite similar to non-meditation. So in some of the texts, they call it non-meditation. In others, they call it contemplation. But contemplation has got certain things and elements in it that I don't see written about in non-meditation. So you don't have to give me the answer now, but just think about it. But what do you feel about what I'm saying about non-meditation?
It does make sense. So just everything that you've described there, because I think Dilgo Khense's statement there that it's a way of life. It just is, and in fact, we're just not aware of it. That's all. But we actually do this non-meditation
all the time.
That we do it all the time, because as you say, you see a child's eyes. It's so fresh. There's that meeting, there's a bond immediately, or with a doggy, or at that moment in time, it's non-meditation, but it is a meditation. And this is why all the teachings have said, whether you're walking or standing or sleeping or eating, whatever, it can be meditation and non-meditation. When you're giving full attention, you whatever you're doing, that is it. It's only when we interfere that we get out of it. When we try and do something, we try to get out of it to fix the world instead of participating with the world.
Exactly.
We're in the world, but not of it.
Exactly that. And all of you can do it. Molly, I want your comment now. What do you think of this? Marcel, I want your comment. What do you think of this? Because you can do it every minute just by being aware. Even when I sat down and saw Somalia tonight, and I just saw this woman being interviewed, this starving woman who'd lost 3 children. And, in that moment, my heart was right there. That's non-meditation. I can't begin to tell you what that face of that hungry woman losing 3 children did to my heart. That's just a moment of awareness.
Well,
I just want to say one thing. A lot of us walk through this world with unawareness. None of you should, but a lot of people are just aware of themselves and they're not aware of the environment. You can see it in queues. Sometimes you stand in a queue and someone's talking on a cell phone or making appointments on a cell phone in the queue at the top of their voice when you're standing right behind them with no awareness that you don't want to hear their appointment being made. Ross, did you want to say something?
Yeah, it sort of seems to me, and maybe it's just one part of it, that you couldn't achieve non-meditation if you hadn't really internalized the sense of true reality of no separate existence, of nothing has any independent form. So until you've done that lack of that concept would continually pull you out of this non-meditation.
I agree with you. I really agree with you. And that's why if you have the opportunity of having a joyful master around you, that is, you probably would get those pointing out instructions without even knowing you were getting them. Just by one of the comments. When I actually thought that Lama Yeshe Rinpoche was here in Johannesburg, and that I was taking him food every week. So I had the opportunity of having time, and he always used to say, sit down, and always phones me wherever I am, which is even now while he's in Scotland, which is such a blessing. And he might just make one little comment that turns my whole being inside out, upside down. So it may not even be a formal instruction. It may just be a passing comment. I know his favorite expression is when he says to me, and yet. That's a pointing out instruction. When a master says to you, tell him something, and then he goes, and yet, okay, and then he's going to tell you the truth about it, not how you saw it, but the truth about it. You know, he'll just give a little, that is that awareness. And what I was thinking of doing, but I don't know if it's going to backfire on me or not, I was actually thinking of asking him whether he wouldn't do a little interview with me that we Zoom recorded on what it's like to live in the nature of mind in your daily life. I thought that would be so beautiful, but he may refuse to do it. And if he does do it, if I did it on Zoom, Fiona, would you be able to show it here?
We should be able to, but remember we had some issues with streaming audio before with that Kuntu Zangpo video. So it's not ideal, but we could, yes, we could do that. Yeah.
Okay, because I want, you know, I just want all of you to, with great joy, realize your opportunity, open portal to unity with your true nature, to realize your opportunity that is right now in your life with these beautiful teachings. So can we do a practice? Does anyone want to say anything? Linda, Molly, Marcel, Shivani, any of you? Tamika, Zelda, Lindy, where it's nice to see you.
Sorry, Mel. So
Please.
if you go back to, you know, there's some prerequisites, as it were, to be able to effectively do non-meditation. It feels like there is a path. There is a path of instruction. Do this, do this, do this, and then do nothing.
Yeah, I like that because, you know, and that's very interesting. And I see Eric isn't here tonight. Otherwise, he would be like a bomb, you know, to give you all the instructions that Alan Wallace gives about calm abiding. And sometimes I say to him, don't fixate on calm abiding, okay? Because I want to give you Tulku Urgent's actual instructions, which are written down, which is such a blessing, in which, you know, he says, don't fixate on the calm abiding, because he gives you the techniques of refreshing and not just staying on that same state of calm abiding, which Westerners find so hard. Yes, there are things to be done. And I will say to you that for me, to come to this, how I'm doing it now, it's taken a lot of years of practice. Okay, a lot of years of practice of doing the things. But doesn't necessarily mean that everybody's got to take a lot of years of practice, because some people have already done a lot of years of practice in previous lives, and now they just get it, they just connect with it. And I've known lots of people like that. But the thing is, that's why in these little meditation practices, like Longchenpa says, take refuge, whichever refuge you like to do, and I can give you some beautiful short refuge things, you know, take refuge. After you've done your refuge, make your bodhisattva vow that you're doing it for the sake of all beings, and then one or two things that you need to do, and then into the non-meditation. But you're right, you do have to train the mind to come to that, whichever way you do it, and then it's much easier to drop everything and then go to drop everything and then, be free in the non-meditation. But I want all of you to experience the freedom of practice, the joy and freedom of practice. Sorry, did you want?
Yeah, can I just say something? The other night, I happened to have a dialogue with a Dzogchen teacher, and it was quite amazing to sum up, and like what Ross was saying, there is a path. There absolutely is a path, but he summed it up so beautifully. He said that the path of sutra is no, no, no. So it's all the instructions. And then the path of, it could be Mahayana, but Vajrayana would be no, yes, yes, no. And then the path of Dzogchen is yes, yes, yes. So it just gives you an idea. All right, you need a lot more experience than but if you read about it, you'll pick up something. But to me, that summed up everything so simply.
Yeah. And these little books that Keith Dowman has written, okay, they're very short, not expensive. Dzogchen Daily Practice, Dzogchen Non-Meditation by Keith Dowman. He's done Dzogchen Bardo teachings. He's done all these little booklets. They're very easily available on Amazon. You can get them, and they've got beautiful practices in them, and then they go to non-practices. So they take you through all the steps of doing, whatever you need to do. But thank you, that's really good. Let's do a practice now, everybody, okay? Let's do a non-meditational practice. Okay. Relax your bodies, really relax your bodies. I'm going to try and do this a little quicker. The experience of non-meditation and the nature of mind is illuminated by 4 key pointers. And these pointers are called in Dzogchen chokchak, okay? And they are very, very useful. I've done them for a long time, and they really are very useful to use at home. Okay, so these pointers are called freely resting metaphors of the nature of mind, subjectively indicating its nature. Freely indicates the absence of any conscious intention or manipulation in the discovery of the nature of mind. And resting indicates the passive quality of the nature of mind. Freely resting implies a total lack of ego sense, an absence of an I doing something to an it. Chokchak are seeing it just as it is. And so there are 4 metaphors. The first metaphor of freely resting, the nature of mind, is called mountain. The quality of the mountain indicated here is its indomitable strength and indestructible nature. So you rest as the mountain. The nature of mind has no substance, no shape or size, no center, can't be measured or quantified, but evidently it is indestructible like a mountain. So it has the undeniable presence and indomitable strength of a mountain. It is the mountain that cannot be moved, the mountain to which Muhammad must bend. Also, like Mount Meru, it is the axis of the universe, protruding as Mount Kailash. It is also a cloud mountain without weight or density, floating in the sky. And this is the imperturbable nature of your true nature of mind, like a mountain that cannot be disturbed or agitated, whatever the color or the emotion that arises in it, you remain undisturbed like a mountain. Whatever stance you take, that stance is the posture like a mountain. The freely resting mountain is a metaphor for the Dzogchen view. Second, the second metaphor for the freely resting nature of mind is ocean, ocean. Leaving the sense of I and mine behind, everything behind is like the ocean, the deceptive nature of control of either the mind or the elements of circumstance or condition. The ocean, calm and imperturbable in its depths, and in constant movement on its surface. The depths where no light shines and no life moves have no form or quality. The surface may sometimes appear calm, but the rollers, the waves, are never still. They move either in harmony or in rough and wild chaos. What is quite clear is that no mind controls the ocean. It moves without apparent logic or reason. The sensory fields have no center, and no controller determines their contents. The ocean is a metaphor for mind and also for the sensory fields, particularly the visual sensory field. The visual field has breadth and depth and is global in shape with its genesis in the eyes. Like the ocean, this field can be still, although its calmness is deceptive, as it may become rough and violent in a moment. This is our field of meditation and the second freely resting metaphor. The third chokchaks is freely resting as appearances in the nature of mind. Appearance refers to all and any sensory manifestation, but in particular, it refers to the manifestation in the visual sensory field. Vision can imply both the viewing and the view, so it can nicely indicate an existential non-dual reality. The metaphor that freely resting as appearances or visions, the metaphor conjures a metaphor of a mirror. This existential state of freely resting is best described and understood as mirror image. The nature of mind is the glass, and the vision of the appearances is the rainbow, is the mirror image. The nature of mind is clear light, the mirror, and the vision is rainbow light. The image in the mirror is inseparable from the glass in the same way as appearances are indistinguishable from the nature of mind. So the mirror has always got a reflection in it, and it is made of rainbow light. And the last metaphor is to be freely resting in pure presence, in RIGPA, and expresses the end of the Dzogchen, the summation of Dzogchen attainment, which is clearly beyond verbal expression. We can say, however, that in the freely resting existential mode of RIGPA, the 5 sensory fields are experienced in radiant clarity that energy is consumed by its spaciousness as it arises, but that whatever occurs is always in the non-dual clear light appearance. So these 4 chakshak, like a mountain, like an ocean, resting in appearances and resting in pure presence, are all the metaphors for the non-meditation. And you should practice them a lot and allow yourself, your imagination, to really flow with each of these 4 chakshak. Practice those 4, and you can do your own with them. It doesn't have to be this. This is just one thing. There are dozens of books written about it, of non-meditation and the 4 chakshak. And it's really lovely when you imagine yourself as a mountain, and then you imagine yourself as an ocean. And you imagine all the things that you're seeing going back into you, and all temporary and all impermanent. And you imagine yourself as a mirror in which all the reflections are coming. These are all the basic things that you can do, Ross, when you're going into non-meditation. And I hope it's useful. So I'm really sorry, we've actually come to the end of time, and I know people have to go. But what we will do next time is we will start with contemplation and with pondering, and we'll put a little bit of reflection into that, and do the different practices. I mean, the subject matter is vast. In these little booklets, there's enough to teach you for the next 6 months, because there's so many practices and so many things. But I'm not worried about that. I don't even mind stopping after we do the next 2. These are short definitions. But what I'm really saying to you is that bring the joy, bring the freedom into your practice, bring it into your daily life. Find the things you love to do in Buddhism and do them by all means, but don't be rigid. Be flexible and flowing, and realize you're doing this to connect with the nature of mind. And once you are connected with the nature of mind, it doesn't matter what you have to go through around you. It makes no difference. You just go through it easily. So I'll stay to answer some questions if anybody wants to ask, but I want you to really ponder a lot of this and see that you find one of the practices that you love and just do it. Doesn't really matter as long as you know why you're doing the practice and what you're doing. Sally only spoke when the toast was burnt. We speak all the time. We yell when the toast is burnt, and we speak in the morning and all the time. So maybe we should just stay in a lovely state. And all of you are just looking, you're pondering now. It's so good. I'll answer anything you want or speak about anything you want. And Ron and Sharon, your contributions are invaluable because you've had a lot of experience in this. And it's really important that you hear and that people can ask you. And even maybe if people can write to you and just ask some of their questions, would that be possible? I don't know if she can hear me. Okay, let's do.
Ron's answering. Ron's saying it's better in a group.
Okay, that's fine. Let's leave it like that, but do participate, because I think you've got a lot to say, and I think it's really important, especially when we do some of Namkhai Norbu's teachings on contemplation. I think that that's very good for you to bring in some of the things that you've learned.
I'd like
So-
to say something else just for a minute. I've
Please.
spent the day refreshing my mind about Guru Rinpoche, and had a wonderful, wonderful retreat day here with Guru Rinpoche. And because of that, I really feel that it just came into my mind now, so I'm sharing it, that it's an absolute miracle. We're sitting here in total darkness with my main connection is gone completely. We're in a state where everything's gone, but this one little poor connection that we've got is working. So thank you to Guru Rinpoche. We encourage you.
And totally. And let me tell you how many times I've been through that in India, where everything isn't working. And I thought, oh God, what am I doing here? And something like that has happened. I've had the most unbelievable dreams or something like that. And that's what Lama Yeshe Rinpoche says. He says, well, you've got a connection with Guru Rinpoche, so ask him for what you want. And I do. And it really, really works. It's amazing.
Absolutely works.
It works because that is the near Manakaya level at our level, and it's amazing. So let's dedicate Fee, and then I'll stay if anybody needs to ask anything. So through this merit, may we achieve all-seeing Buddhahood, and thereafter, once all harmful enemies have been defeated, may all beings be liberated from the ocean of existence, stirred by the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, all of those that are really going through such trauma now on the earth plane. Sonam we dedicate for them. Sonam die tamche zipane, topne nepe dranam pamshene, Jega nachi balak dopaye sipe sole doa do warsho.